Hi, this is Rabbi Jeremy Gordon. I've got a new series of things I hope you will find interesting. Big ideas for a lockdown world. These are things that I've come across that are deep parts of how I look at the world, and as we are in this time of lockdown, I've been reflecting on them again, and I thought I would draw them together. I want to start with this one, which I think is a big one, which is what is the point of doing anything? Kierkegaard said that a single event of inexplicable horror has the power to make everything inexplicable. I think that's something that people who suffer from the medical disease of depression feel, that there is just nothing that they can do that could possibly mean anything. And for many of us, this COVID inspired lockdown is nothing as serious as depression. But I think we are feeling that kind of existential angst. I want to take a quick trip through three Holocaust thinkers who are incredibly important to me and have been as I've engaged with this as an issue over many years at this point. The first is Emil Fackenheim. Emil Fackenheim was in Germany. He was arrested as part of Kristallnacht and taken to Sachsenhausen for 3 months before he fled first to this country and subsequently to Canada. In, I think, his most important book, To Mend the World, he's asking this question. In the face of the Holocaust, does anything that anybody does count for anything? How could you take the horror of the Holocaust on the one hand and anything else on the other and balance that out at all? And he talks about his epiphany in the context of a small act done by a singular person who believed in the validity and the importance of that act in the midst of de Essene, in the midst of the very essence of the Holocaust. And he uses, to talk about that, a Kabbalistic term of tikkun, of fixing. He's thinking that if people in the midst of the Holocaust are doing things and believing in the value of those things, then who am I to say that those things don't count? Those things have to really count. And he, through thinking that through in the Holocaust, comes to a much more hopeful place about the possibility of action at all. The contemporary British Holocaust thinker, Dr. Melissa Raphael, does something similar and more extended in this way. She thinks that the questions that most of us have been asking theologically, where is God? Where was God in the Holocaust? These kinds of questions, they're sort of meaningless when you compare them to the way in which God's presence in the universe is made real through individual action. She takes a very gendered understanding of this, particularly through the actions of women providing care for one another, people putting their arms around one another in times of horror and loss and pain, the like of which I cannot even begin to imagine. She finds meaning in these tiny actions that reveal godliness through relationship and through possibility. The third thinker who is right at the top of my soul when I think through these kinds of issues is another survivor, this time of Auschwitz, Viktor Frankl, who wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that everything can be taken away from a person but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given sense of circumstances, to choose one's way. Which I think is to say this: no matter what we are experiencing objectively, we still retain our subjective control, our ability to decide what meaning to attribute to those things. I think we've all seen it. We've all seen people for whom the smallest thing renders them completely broken, but also people who have faced unbelievable challenge and have refused to allow that to break them, or they've even found abilities to take joy through the tiniest little counterbalance in the context of something awful. And what Frankl is saying is that that is our decision ultimately. It's not dependent on the world out there. It's not dependent on any of the objective, physical, material, corporeal things of the world, as much as those things may give us physical pain. Ultimately, the ability to make meaning is our own internal, private, spiritual, existential, he would use the word logotherapy, almost sort of kind of self-willing into possibility. And one midrash that sits with all of this for me. It's Bereshit Rabbah 19:11, a midrash that's told in the name of Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, although I think it has a corollary in Delphic oracles, remarkably. The story is told of a hunter who finds a rabbi, and he brandishes his hand before the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I have in this hand a bird. Is this bird alive or dead?" And the rabbi knows, and you can hear the bird chirping, that the bird is alive. But if he says that the bird is alive, the hunter will kill the bird and prove the rabbi a fool. But if the rabbi says that the bird is dead, the hunter will open his hands and reveal the bird alive and reveal the rabbi to be a fool. And Rabbi Chanina bar Papa says this, which I think is extraordinary. If you will it, it's alive, and if you will it, it's dead. I think the point of that midrash and the point of what I've just tried to share today is this. We have more will over the possibility of meaning in our own existence and meaning in this entire world than we sometimes realize. We hold the possibility of meaning in our hands and in our hearts, and we reveal meaning through our acts, particularly our acts of love and care and the building of relationship between one human and another. Thank you.